Welcome to today's class. In today's class, we discuss about the topic Introduction to Game Theory and its application. The objectives: after completion of this unit, you should be able to learn the concept of game theory, the various terminology of the game theory, and the methods to solve the game theory. Now we discuss what is actually game theory. Game theory is a type of decision theory in which one's choice of action is determined after taking into accounts all possible alternatives available to an opponent playing the same rather than by the possibilities of several outcomes. Game theory has only been capable of analyzing various simple competitive situations. The definition of game theory is game is defined as an activity between two or more persons involving activities by each person according to a set of rules at the end of which each person receives some benefits or satisfaction or suffers loss, that is also mentioned as negative benefits. Another definition of game theory is the set of rules defines the game. Going through the set of rules once by the participants defines a play. Now, again I am discuss what is actually the game theory. Game theory means it is a mathematical tool or model used for decision making process. It is a tool or technique used by the player to understand the strategy of the competitor player. It is used by the player to defeat the competitors. Means always the game will play between two player or two teams. Just like a cricket game or football game, there are two teams. If team A plans to win the match at the same time, the competitor or the team B also makes some strategy how to win the same game. So that is known as the game theory. Again, I am explained in general term, the game refers to a situation of conflict and competition in which two or more competitors are involved in the decision-making process in anticipation of certain outcomes over a period of time. The competitor are referred to as player. The player may be an individual or group of peoples or group of persons or an organization. A few examples of competitive and conflicting decision environment that involves the interaction between two or more competitors are, let us consider one example here, pricing of product, where sales of any product is determined not only by its price but also the price set by the competitors for a similar product. Similarly, another example, the success of any TV channel program largely depends on what the competitors' presence in the same time slot and the program they are telecasting. For example, suppose now in a particular time, Star Plus channel is the most popular channel, sends a program and number of persons or number of viewers see that channel at that particular time. So at the same time, the GTV means the competitor of Star Plus plan which program should be delivered at that time so that more people or more number of viewers can attract towards the GTV channel. That is the meaning of, means always you plan how to defeat your competitors. Another example, the success of business strategy depends upon the policy of internal revenue service regarding the expenses that may be disallowed. The success of an advertising or marketing campaign depends on the various types of service offered to the customers. One more example I am explaining here. All of you know that there are two company. One is your Pepsi, another is your Coca-Cola. So both are the competitors to each other. Suppose Pepsi company manufacture 10 bottles and Coca-Cola also manufacture 10 bottles, and in the market 10 bottles are sales, but Pepsi, the 10 bottles are not sales. So what happened means one company gain the profit of 10 bottles and another company at the same time lost 10 bottles. That means here the Pepsi company try to minimize the loss, and at the same time the Coca-Cola company try to maximize the profit. Means one is whenever one gain, other must be loss. So whenever you face a loss, you try to how to minimize the loss. That is your game theory. For academic interest, theory of games provides a series of mathematical models that may be useful in explaining interactive decision-making concepts, where two or more competitors are involved under conditions of conflict and competition. However, such models provide an opportunity to a competitor to evaluate not only his personal decision alternatives but also the evaluation of the competitor's possible choice in order to win the game. Game theory came into existence in 20th century. However, in 1944, John von Neumann published a book named Theory of Games and Economic Behavior, in which he discussed how business of all types may use this technique to determine the best strategy given a competitive business environment. The author's approach was based on the principles of best out of the worst. So this is the general concept of game theory. Now the characteristics of game theory. There are various types of games that can be classified on the basis of the following characteristics. The first characteristics, chance of strategy. If in a game, activities are determined by skill, it is said to be a game strategy if they are determined by chance. It is a game of chance. In general, a game may involve game strategy as well as a game of chance. Number of person. A game is called an n-person game if number of person playing is n, because we know that always the game is playing between two or more person or players. If a game is called an n-person game if the number of person playing is n. The person means an individual or a group aiming at a particular objective. Suppose we may also consider the player an individual or a group of players or institutions or companies or parties, etc. Number of activities. These are finite or infinite. Number of alternatives. A finite game has a finite number of activities, each involving a finite number of alternatives. Otherwise, the game is said to be infinite. Then information to the players about the past activities of other player is completely available, partly available or not available at all. So information to the player must be given, must be known so that the player can make the strategy how to gain more profit or how to win the game. So the past activities of other player is required. Then payoff. It is an important term in game theory. A quantitative measures of satisfaction a person gets at the end of each play is called a payoff. It is a real valued function of variable in the game. So payoff means, again I am explaining here, net gain or net result or the outcome. It is a net gain to the player by selecting a particular strategy. Similarly, strategy means there are different types of strategy. So in the first I am writing your stance of strategy. If in a game activities are determined by skill, it is said to be the game strategy. So game strategy are of two types. One is your pure strategy, another is your mixed strategy. Then basic definitions. Competitive game. So what is actually a competitive game? A competitive game situations is called a competitive game. It has the following properties. There are finite number of competitors called player. Suppose I have denoted as capital N, such that n greater than or equal to 2. So the game will play between two player or more than two players. That's why I'm writing the condition n greater than or equal to 2. If n equal to 2, it is called a two-person game. It is called a two-person game. And n greater than 2, it is referred to as n-person game. Then each player has a list of finite number of possible activities. This is the second characteristics. Each player has a list of finite number of possible activities. A player is said to occur when each player chooses one of his alternatives or activities. Every combination of activities determines outcome, means the net result. Then one more concept in the game theory is zero sum and non-zero sum game. So what is actually zero sum and non-zero sum game? Competitive games are classified according to the number of players involved. It may be n-person game, or it may be two-person game, or three-person game, etc. So loss of one is gain of others. If one team or one person facing loss at the same time, the other person or other player must gain that amount is gain of other, and nothing comes from outside. The competitive game is said to be zero-sum game. Zero-sum game means the loss of one player is equal to the gain of other player. So that is known as a zero-sum game. A game which is not zero-sum is called as non-zero-sum game. This is actually the concept of zero-sum and non-zero-sum game. Now, strategy. A strategy of a player has been loosely defined as a rule for decision making in advance of all the player by which he decides the activities he should adopt. Means if you decide what are the activities or course of action taken to win the game, that means you have to decide first. In other words, a strategy for a given player is a set of rules that specifies which of the available course of action he should make at each play. This strategy may be of two types. So strategy in general means action taken by the player. And what action you plan to execute to win the match or to win the game. So there are two strategies, already you know about it, pure strategy and mixed strategy. If a player knows exactly what the other player is going to do, suppose the game is playing between two players, and if a player knows exactly what the other player is going to do, a deterministic situation is obtained and objective functions is to maximize the gain. Suppose one player know what the other player is planning, then your function, your objective is to maximize the gain. Therefore, the pure strategy is a decision rule, always to select a particular course of action. A pure strategy is usually represented by a number with which the course of action is associated. So that is not a pure strategy. In pure strategy, what is the meaning of, again I am explaining? Pure strategy means always selecting same strategy. Always selecting same strategy. Mixed strategy. Similarly, mixed strategy means if a player is guessing as to which activity is to be selected by the other on any particular occasion, a probabilistic situation is obtained and objective function is to maximize the expected gain. Therefore, mixed strategy is a selection among pure strategies with fixed probabilities. So in pure strategy, the deterministic situations, and mixed strategy, that is not a probabilistic situation. So mixed strategy means selection more than one strategy. Whenever you select the pure strategy or mixed strategy, but the probability of win the game must be 1. Of different, if you find the probability of different activities or strategies, if you add, the probability definitely represents as 1. Then 2-person zero-sum game. It is called as rectangular game. A game with only 2 players, suppose player A and player B, is called 2-person zero-sum game. That is, if the losses of one player, whatever the losses faced by the player are equivalent to the gain of other, so that the sum of their net gain is 0. It can be represented by using payoff matrix. Let us consider one example here. There are 2 competitors, there are companies. One company sells 10 items, and other company, the competitor company, manufactured 10 items, but it is not sale. So what happened? The competitor company faces the 10 losses. At the same time, the other company gain the same 10 items. That means if you add this, or if you add, that means that is not a zero-sum game. If it is equivalent, then it is called as a zero-sum gain. The net gain is 0. Then payoff matrix, a quantitative measure of satisfaction that a player at the end of the play, in terms of gain or loss, when players select their particular strategies. Strategy means what? Course of action, can be represented in the form of matrix called as matrix. Then numerical problems of game theory. Before we going to solve the numerical problems of game theory, some terms is again I am explained is very important. Once again I am explained what is actually game theory. The game theory is a mathematical model which is basically used for decision making process. So it is a tool or technique used by the players to understand the strategy of the competitors players. So means how to make your strategy to defeat the competitors. That is the main objective. Player means player may be the individual, maybe the institutions, maybe the companies, or maybe the parties, etc. And strategy means what? Action taken by the player. There are two strategies. You know that actually pure strategy and mixed strategy. So pure strategy means always selecting same strategy, and mixed strategy means selecting more than one strategy. Let us consider there are two players, player 1, player 2, player 3, and player 1 consider three strategies P1, P2, P3. So the probability for selecting the strategy 1 is 0. Let the probability for selecting strategy 2 is 1. Probability to select third strategy is 0. Then the probability is what? 0 plus 1 plus 0, that is 1. Hence the probability for gaining is 1 in pure strategy. In mixed strategy, selecting more than one strategy means not we select only one strategy. You can select more than one strategy. For example, probability of finding the strategies like P1 equal to 0.75, that means the probability of first strategy, and also we select the second strategy for the profit, that is known as the probability 2 or P2. So probability of second strategy equal to 0.25, and the probability of strategy 3 is 0. Then the probability equal to 0.75 plus 0.25 plus 0 equal to 1. So this is known as a strategy. Payoff matrix. What is payoff matrix? The gain or result of the game presented in the form of table. So once again I am repeat here. What is payoff first? Payoff means what? It means the net gain or net result, net outcome. It is a net gain to the player by selecting a particular strategy. Then after payoff means you go for matrix, you can represent all the values in the form of matrix, row and column wise. And for example, there are two players, player A and player B. In the column heading I am writing as player B and player A. In the row wise I am mentioning here. So there are three strategies considered by player B and three strategies considered by player A. Let us consider, I am mentioning here 1-1. First strategy for player B and first strategy for player A, I mentioned 10. Similarly, second strategy and first strategy for player A equal to 40 and 20 and 38, 20, 10 and 15, 18 and 25. What is the meaning of this? All the values are positive. So always we think in the game theory, player A is always trying to maximize the profit. Player A is always trying to maximize the profit. At the same time, player B apply different strategy to minimize the loss. That is the meaning of this zero-sum game. So suppose 18. I am mentioning here 18. That means in column 2, I mentioned 18 in column 2, the column 3, yes, in row 3, it is 18. What is the indicate meaning? So player A implemented the strategy 3 for 18 profit, 18 items profit. At the same time, player B follow the strategies or adapt the strategies to minimize the same 18 item loss. That is known as the best example. Then in the second example, same thing I mentioned here, player B, that is the maximizing profit, and player A minimizing loss. When in the payoff matrix, the values are mentioned as negative, at the same time, we just opposite our action. That means player B tried to maximizing the profit and player A is the minimization loss. Then principles. Maximum principle and minimax principle. For player A, follow the maximum principle that is maximize the minimum guaranteed profit, and minimax principle means for player B follow the minimax principles, that is minimized the maximum guaranteed loss. Let us consider there are two players and player A having two strategy and player B having two strategy, and player A is gained two items, whereas the same time player B losses the two items by using the maximin principle and minimax principle. If the value are same, the gain and loss are same, and that intersection point is called as a saddle point, a point of equilibrium. So maximin value equal to minimax value. Then we discuss about what is value of game. If the payoff matrix has a saddle point, then the value of saddle point is called as value of game. Value of game. For example, I am explaining here, there are a table, player A and player B are there, player B having 4 strategy and player A having 3 strategy, and some values must consist negative and some consist positive. So we have to follow the minimax and maximin principles. So what is actually maximin principle? What is actually minimax principle? So maxi, then you call mean. So you have to find the minimum profit, and from that minimum we have to calculate the maximum profit. Similarly, minimax means we have to find the maximum loss, and out of the maximum loss we try to find the minimum loss. That is called as maximin and minimax principles. So this is actually here I am mentioning. Then saddle point, the point of equilibrium. The saddle point is also called as the point of equilibrium. Maximin value equal to minimax value. If in the intersection point of maximin and value equal to minimax value, it is called as a saddle point. Value of game means what? If the payoff matrix has a saddle point, then the value of saddle points called as value of game. 2% zero sum game, a game with 2 player. That is the restriction here. A game with 2 player in which gain of one player is equal to the loss of other player. If one player gains, that must be equal to the loss of other player. It is called as a game with 2 players and called as 2% zero sum game. Then consider pure strategy, because we know that there are 2 types of strategy. One is a pure strategy problem, another is a mixed strategy problem. One example I am explaining here. It means player always select one strategy or same strategies. Means in game theory, if the game will play between 2 players, the player A always follow the same strategy to win the match, to win the game. That is a pure strategy. For example, find the value of the game. Player B having 4 strategies, 1, 2, 3, 4 column headings I mentioned here, and player A consists 3 strategies, 3 activities, 1, 2, 3. Then I may mention here row wise -5, 2, 0, 7, 5, 6, 4, 8, 4, 0, 2, -3, 5, 6, 4, 8. So only you consider the up to strategies 1, 2, 3 for player A and 1, 2, 3, 4 for player B. Now I am mentioned in the row wise, that is a minimax, and the column heading I am mentioned as a maximin. This is the 2 principles. So row wise we have to find, means what you indicates here, Player A, strategy 1, follow the values -5 to 0, 7. That means, suppose in the start column 2, it is mentioned as 2. Player A, whenever think for the profit of 2 or gain of 2 at the same time, player B think the loss of 2. That is the meaning of this. So this is the example. We have to find the value of game. So how to find the value of game? The various steps to solve the value, to find the value of game or to solve the game problem are: number 1, row wise find the minimum profit for player A. So we have to calculate the row wise minimum profit. Minimum profit -207. Minimum is what? -5 does not consider 0. -5 definitely less than 0. So that's why -5 is the minimum value. We have to find the minimum value row wise. So in the first row it is -5. In the second row it is 4. In the third row it is -3. So -3, 4, -5. We are getting maximum. After finding the minimum value, we have to calculate the maximum value. That is -5. 4 and -3, we get the mean value, that is 4. Similarly, for player B, column wise, for strategy 1, we calculate the maximum value is 5. -5, 4 and 5, that is 5 is maximum. Similarly, for strategy 2, 6 is maximum. For strategy 3, 4 is maximum. And for strategy 4, the maximum value is 8. In this way, if we calculate the maximum value, we have to calculate the minimum. That means 5, 6, 4, 8. Which one is minimum? 4 is minimum. So I mentioned in this table, in this example, in the bold letter, that is 4. In the third column, 4. In the second row, 4. Both are the indicates a saddle point. That means 4 equal to 4. That is 4 is mentioned in the table. That is known as a saddle point. Row wise find the minimum profit for the player A. Select maximum profit among the minimum profit. Column wise find the maximum loss for player B. Select minimum loss among the maximum loss. Now intersecting point is 4. Through the slide here, intersecting point, second row, third column. The intersecting point is 4. Hence, it is called as a saddle point. The value of game is 4. The value of game is 4. How we calculate the value of game? For player A, the probability for the strategy 1 equal to 0, for the probability for the strategy 2 equal to 0, probability for the strategy 3 equal to 1. At the same time, for player B, probability of getting by implementing strategy 1 equal to 0. Similarly, if you select strategy 2, the probability for strategy 2 becomes 0. The probability for strategy 3 equal to 1. The probability for strategy 4 equal to 0. Now, what happened? P1 equal to 0, P2 equal to 0, P3 equal to 1. So I mentioned here for the player B, Q1 equal to 0, Q2 equal to 0, Q3 equal to 1, Q4 equal to 0. That is known as your probability of strategy wise for player A and player B. Mixed strategy. If in a problem there is no saddle point, then it is called a mixed strategy. If in a game theory problem there are no saddle points exist, then it is called a mixed strategy problem. For example, consider the following payoff matrix and solve it optimally. So for player A there are two strategies, for player B also there are two strategies. That is 1, 2, 3 minus 4. That means we have to calculate the min max and maximin. Maximin row wise and column wise we represent, and minimax row wise and column wise represented. That is 1, 2, 3 minus 4. 1 minus of minus 2, that is noisy. 1 minus 2, that is noisy 1. Omit the negative symbol, that is 1. Then 3 minus 4, 3 minus 4, minus of minus 4, that is positive. Then that becomes so it becomes minus 4. Then in this way, I am not finding the difference here directly for the odds method. I am considering here the maximin and minimax method here. Listen students, 1, 2, 3 minus 4, row wise, 1 is minimum profit. We have to calculate the maximum. After finding the strategy 2, 3 minus 4, that is minus 4 is minimum. From 1 and minus 4, 1 is maximum. That's why I am bolded. Similarly, column wise, if you follow we have to find the maximum loss in the strategy 1 for player B, that is 3, and for the strategy 2, the maximum loss is 2. Then we have to find the minimum loss among these two, that is 2. That means I have represented it becomes bold letter and 1 becomes bold letter, so that in this case there is no saddle point. So it is called as a mixed strategy problem. We can solve it by odds method, and this odds method is also called as shortcut method. Shortcut method. I am explaining with the example here. We can directly implement the formula to find the value of game, or we can use the shortcut method to find the value of game. It's very easy. Look, this is the question here. First we have find the maximin and min max. Here there is no saddle point, so the min max maximin principle is not adopted, not implemented to find the value of game. It's not possible. So it is a mixed strategy problem. So you can use the odds method to find out the value of game. What I am writing here in this table, in the first row, I am writing here 1 and 1, 2, and second row it is the strategy, second strategy for player A, that is 3 minus 4. We have to find the differentiate. We have to find the differentiate. I am also explain by use stepwise. What is the step 1 I am writing here? Find the difference between two values row wise and write in the opposite position. Omit the negative sign. Look here, 1 minus 2. What is actually a value? 1. I am finding the first order difference row wise. 1 minus 2, that is minus 1, but omit the negative sign, that's why I mentioned here 1. I am writing in the column wise, in the opposite direction. Then similarly I am finding 3 minus of minus 4, that means that is 7. I am writing in the other position, that is means in different direction. So here I am writing in the column 7 and 1, that is 3 minus of minus 4, and 1, that is 1 minus 2. Similarly, in the column wise for player B, strategy 1, 1, 3, 1 minus 3, that is minus 2. Omit the value negative sign, I am representing 2 in the strategy 2 column. Similarly, for strategy 2, 2 minus of minus 4, that becomes 6. I am mentioned in the strategy 1 column. So it is the in 5 steps. So find the difference between two values row wise and write in opposite position. Omit the negative sign. Find the difference between two values column wise and write in opposite position. Then add the value row and column. If it is equal, then apply odds method. Look here. 6 plus 2, that is 8. 7 plus 1, that is 8. That is the step 3 satisfied. Then add the value of row and column. If it is equal, then apply the odds method. Then if I apply the odds method, for player A, what is the probability? For player A, what is the probability? For strategy 1, we have to find the strategy probability for strategy 1 for winning or maximum the profit, that is 7 by 8. Similarly, the probability for strategy 2 for player A, it becomes 1 by 8. In this way, I am writing here. For player A, the probability is 7 by 8. For player A, second strategy, that is probability equal to 1 by 8. For player B, for first strategy, the probability equal to 6 by 8. Player B, second strategy, probability equal to 2 by 8. Now we have to find the value of game. So the value of game means what? 1 into 7 plus 3 into 1 divided by the 8. Whatever you add row and column wise. So that is 10 by 8. If the same process we can implement for player B, the same 2 into 7 plus minus 4 into 1 divided by 8, that is 10 by 8. That's I am writing here. So methods of solving game theory. So we know about what is actually pure strategy, what is actually mixed strategy. So there are different methods to solve the game problems. One is minimax and maximum principles, already you know in the previous slides. That is, you can implement it is for only pure strategy. If the game problem is not pure strategy, means there is no saddle points, at that time we used different methods. One is your odds method, dominance method, equal game method, or graphical method. We can implement these methods for the mixed strategy problems. For example, solve the following game problem using minimax and maximum principles. So in this example, there are two players, player A and player B. Player A consists 3 strategies and player B consists 2 strategies. Now, if we apply minimax and maximum principles, so row wise we have to find the minimum profit. Where the minimum profit is there, and then after finding the minimum profit, we try to find the maximum value, maximum profit. So for strategy 1, for player A, the minimum value is 2. That means the minimum profit. For strategy 2, for player A, the minimum value is 6. For strategy 3, for player A, the minimum value is 4. So out of 2, 6, 4, which one is maximum value? 6 is the maximum value. So we have to find the minimum profit, and out of minimum profit we have to find the maximum value, means maximum profit. Similarly, for player B, strategy 1, we have to find the maximum loss. So 986. So 9 is the higher number, higher digit. So I mentioned here 9. For strategy 2, 2, 6, 4. So 6 is greater, a higher number. So I mentioned here 6. For strategy 2 of player B. Then out of finding the 2 maximum value, we try to minimize the loss. So means we have to calculate the minimax. So 6 is the minimum value. And for player A, 6 is the maximum value. Means here the saddle point exists. Means there is an intersection point. Strategy 2 in player A, strategy 2 for player B, there is an intersection point, that is known as saddle point. I am mentioned in the bold letter, that is 6. The saddle point is 6, hence the value of game is 6. The value of game is 6. If it does not satisfy, then we go for odds method. One more example here, I am explaining, solve the game problem. For example, there are two strategies for player A, two strategies for player B. Player A apply the strategy and get the profit 5. Player A apply the strategy and get the profit, that is 1. Row wise it is the value is mentioned 5, 1, 3, 4. I am representing in general, that is A11, A12 in the matrix format, A21, A22. Now, by using the formula, that's why I am writing here A11, A12, A21, A22. What is the meaning of this? A11 means first row, first column value. A12 means first row, second column value. A21 means first, second row, first column value. A22 means second row, second column value. That is the values you can represent mathematically. Here in this example, it is mentioned as a 5, 1, 3, 4. Then, what is the value of game? By using this formula, we can calculate the value of game directly without applying the shortcut method. That is A11, A12, A11 into A12 minus A12, A21, A12, A21. Divided by A11 plus A22 minus A12 plus A21. This is the formula. If I am putting the value of game values in that formula, we get the value of game. So what is A11 value? A11 value is 5. What is A12 value? That is 4. That is not A12, that is A22. That is 5 into 4 minus 1 into 3. 1 into 3. Cross multiplication. 5 into 4, 1 into 3. Divided by 5 plus 4 minus 1 plus 3. That is 17 by 5. That is the value of game. Similarly, we can calculate the probability for strategy 1 of player A by using the formula A22 minus A21 divided by A11 plus A22 minus A12 plus A21. That becomes 1 by 5. And probability for strategy 2 of the player A is automatically, because if you add the two probability, it becomes 1. If you get the probability of one strategy, then automatically you get the probability of the second strategy, that is 1 minus P of 1, that is 4 by 5. Similarly, we calculate the probability for strategy 1 for the player B by using the formula A22 minus A12 divided by A11 plus A22 minus A12 plus A21. After putting the values in that formula, we get the value, that is 3 by 5. And probability of strategy 2 for player B becomes 1 minus Q of 1, that is 2 by 5. So this is how to calculate the value of game and probabilities for mixed method by using formula. Then come to the point. Another method is, third method is there, that is called as your dominance method. Third method is called as your dominance method. So dominance method is applied to solve the game problem. We can sometimes reduce the size of the games means payoff matrix by eliminating the course of action which is show inferior to another as never to be used. Such a course of action is said to be dominated by the other. The concept of dominance is specifically useful for the evaluation of two-person zero-sum games where saddle point does not exist. So we can use the mixed method and dominance method to solve the game problem. So whenever we apply the dominance method to solve the game problem, we follow the dominance property. So dominance property means in some games it is possible to reduce the size of the payoff matrix by eliminating row or columns that are dominated by the other rows or columns respectively. Means you have to just eliminate the rows and columns by applying the dominance property. If there is a 4 cross 4, we try to minimize it, becomes 3 to 3 cross 3. Then we apply the same method to reduce it to 2 into 2. Then it is very easy to find by using the minimax or max-min principles or odds method. If the matrix is 2 cross 2, then dominance property for rows, how to reduce? X less than equal to y, that is if all the elements of a particular row x, let it become x, are less than or equal to the corresponding elements of another row y, then delete the row x. Row x is dominated by row y. So we eliminate the row x. The elements of a particular row x can also be compared with an average of the 2 or more other rows. If the elements of the rows x are less than or equal to the corresponding elements after taking the average, then delete the row x. So that is our dominance property. How to reduce one row by using this principle. Then dominance property for column. Let x greater than equal to y, that is if all the elements of a particular column x are greater than or equal to the corresponding elements of another column y, then delete column x, that is column x is dominated by column y. The elements of the column x can also be compared with an average of 2 or more columns, and if the elements of column x are greater than the corresponding elements after taking the average, then delete the column. That is known as a dominance property. Similarly, other methods are there: algebraic method, calculus method, linear programming method to solve the game problem without saddle points. Similarly, I am trying to explain the graphical method. Graphical method for 2 into n games. So step 1, reduce the size of the payoff matrix of player A by applying dominance property if it exists. Let x be the probability of selection of alternative 1 by player A and 1 minus x be the probability of selection alternative 2 by player A. Derive the expected gain function of player A with respect to each of the alternative player B. Step 3, find the value of the game, how much gain when x equal to 0 and x equal to 1. Plot gain functions on a graph by assuming a suitable scale. Keep x on x-axis and the gain on y-axis. Step 5, find the highest intersection point in the lower boundary of the graph maximum point. Step 6, if the number of lines passing through the maximum point is only 2 from a 2 into 2 payoff matrix, go to step 8. Otherwise, go to step 7. Identify any two lines with opposite slopes passing through that point, then form a 2 into 2 pair of matrix. What is step 8? Last step, that is solve 2 into 2 game using odds method and find the strategies for player A and player B and the value of game. That is now the graphical method. So the principles of the dominance method is reduce the payoff matrix into 2 cross 2 matrix. If in the question, if in the problem it is mentioned as the 4 cross cross, we try to minimize to up to 2 into 2 matrix. Then we apply simply the maximum or min max principle, or we can implement the odds method or shortcut method to find the value of game. So that is known as a dominance method or reducing matrix method. Now I am summarized of today's class. What we learn. So what is actually the game theory? Game theory is nothing a mathematical model used by the player for decision making process, or it is a tools and technique used by the player to understand the strategies of the competitor. Then the player, the term player means the player may be an individual or a group of members or persons or institutions or companies, etc. Then the characteristics of game theory. There are various types of games that can be classified on the basis of following characteristics. So we know there are two types of game. One is your pure strategy game or mixed strategy game. And what is actually competitive game? A game is said to be competitive game in such a situation that when there are finite number of competitors called players and n must be greater than or equal to 2, because the game will play between 2 players or more than 2 players. If n equal to 2, it is called as 2-person game, and if n greater than 2, it is referred as n-person game. And each player must have a finite number of possible activities. Then what is zero-sum game? A game in which the loss of one is equal to the gain of other, it is called as a zero-sum game. If a game is not zero-sum, it is called as a non-zero-sum game. Then what is actually strategy? A strategy of a player has been loosely defined as a rule of decision making in advance of all players, by which the player decide the activities he should adopt. And there are two types of strategy: pure strategy and mixed strategy. Then payoff matrix, we can represent the payoff values in the matrix form. Then we know about what is player, what is strategy, what is payoff matrix, and solve some problems. And at the last, we know how to solve the game problem by using dominance method. That means by reducing the rows and columns of the payoff matrix up to 2 cross 2 matrix, and then we apply odds method or minimax or max-mini principles to find the value of game. Thank you.